Next, we'll discuss the second location in A Journey to the West, the teaching on recognizing the nature of mind in Buddhism. How was this teaching on recognizing the nature of mind presented? The teaching on recognizing the nature of mind in Buddhism. On June 26th, His Holiness was invited to Dzigar Kongtrul Rinpoche's center. Dzigar Kongtrul Rinpoche is still alive. I believe he was recognized by the 16th Karmapa as a reincarnation of Kongtrul Yonten Gyatso. Yonten Gyatso has several reincarnations, and he is one of them. He came to the United States in 1989 and has remained there until now. I believe he still has several centers. At that time, Lone Hawk Farm. Lone Hawk Farm was a rented venue. Some of them were centers back then, but they aren't anymore. Including the one we introduced the day before yesterday, Mapa House. I heard that their center now is having difficulty sustaining itself. Perhaps because the Guru is no longer there and the Dharma friends have scattered. I heard it has now been sold to some other organizations. The Mapa House we discussed yesterday is actually not a Buddhist center anymore, or it might be a center for another religion. As for Lone Hawk Farm, it's a relatively large venue in the local area where they sometimes hold lectures, sometimes seminars, and sometimes weddings, a rather large facility available for rent. I heard that even now, if Dharma teachers want to give teachings there, they can still rent Lone Hawk Farm, because their buildings were basically the same 30 years ago as they are now. I remember it has a pointed roof. It has this antique architectural style, that kind of building. So at this place, a teaching on the nature of mind was given. First was Dzigar Kongtrul Rinpoche's opening speech. Kongtrul Rinpoche later had several other centers, some called Jigme something or other, some called Phuntsok or something, seems somewhat similar to His Holiness's name. I don't know, maybe he thought it was related. He actually studied the Kagyu tradition and also the Nyingma tradition. In the later articles there's mention of their center. So when His Holiness gave the teaching, he combined the Kagyu and Nyingma traditions to give them a direct pointing out instruction. Very interesting. Each of His Holiness's lectures, if you know the background, has its own distinct characteristics. Because we had no way to record these teachings, His Holiness didn't make any special preparations either. At least we never saw him opening books or anything. He didn't bring many books at that time, just a few books, nothing more. Never anything like that, let alone checking online now to see if Baidu has anything. There was nothing like that. First, Kongtrul Rinpoche's opening speech went like this. Om Svasti. Before getting started, please allow me to say a few words and also give a brief introduction for His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche. On an occasion like this, according to tradition, we should speak of the 5 perfections. First, the perfect place. The perfect place is here in Boulder, Colorado, which has been blessed by the 16th Karmapa, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche, and other great masters. This is a blessed place. At that time he mentioned Khyentse Rinpoche, but Khyentse Rinpoche, it seems Dilgo Khyentse never went there, and the current Khyentse Rinpoche seems not to have gone either. Later we didn't get to ask about it. When he spoke, he said Khyentse Rinpoche and others, but Khyentse Rinpoche wasn't included later on. Trungpa Rinpoche was definitely there, and the 16th Karmapa was too. The 16th Karmapa spent quite a long time in Colorado. Second is the perfect time. This is the first time we have gathered in this country to hold an extended Nyingma summer seminar. I heard this was maintained for a long time. This is such an auspicious moment because they were holding such an extended Dharma gathering where everyone was practicing virtue. This was a wonderful time, that's what he meant, a wonderful time. Third is the perfect teacher, His Holiness Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche. Rinpoche has traveled all the way from the Tibetan areas to spread the Dharma. In the Tibetan areas, he is known in every household. As we know, Rinpoche is not only a fully accomplished Dzogchen master, but also a very noble terton, and all tertons are the true embodiments of Guru Padmasambhava. What he said was quite accurate. Indeed, our Guru Rinpoche was a true Dzogchen practitioner with genuine realization and also a terton. Look at our Guru's Terma teachings. So today we are extremely fortunate to hear Rinpoche's teachings, which means we are fortunate to hear from a reincarnation of Guru Padmasambhava, to receive teachings in the presence of Guru Padmasambhava. Very interesting. Fourth is the perfect retinue. Here we have Jigme Rinpoche, Gyatru Rinpoche, as well as all of us gathered here. This Jigme Rinpoche. We'll encounter him later at Atiyoga, where he'll appear with perhaps a bit more explanation. I think he's now in Cuba or somewhere. Gyatral Rinpoche is the abbot of Tashi Choling. He is Domang Gyatral from Domang Monastery, a Tulku from before. Later, at the third location, he should be mentioned at the third location, and all of us gathered here. Fifth is the perfect teaching. With all these perfections, we request His Holiness to turn the wheel of Dharma by giving us a direct pointing out instruction on Dzogchen Atiyoga. We hope Rinpoche will fulfill our wishes and give us direct pointing out on the nature of mind. Receiving Rinpoche's teaching this time will be an important mark in our lives. I considered this translation of mark for a long time. In Tibetan he used a rather special word. Actually, this is very important at saying that Rinpoche's teaching in each of our lives is a mark, a milestone, like making a mark on our body, a tattoo, something particularly important and unforgettable, a landmark. For instance, in our lifetime, receiving a certain teaching, receiving the Nyingtik Yabji, receiving the Manjushri Dzogchen empowerment, you can consider these as milestones, as monuments in your life, something very important. In each person's life, there may be several things truly worth commemorating, such as meeting a certain guru or receiving a certain teaching. From a worldly perspective, marriage, having children, finding work, attending university. These are different marks in one's life. I think what he said was quite right. Those who attended this teaching by His Holiness were truly fortunate. It should be considered a mark in each person's life. Next, we will make the mandala offering to Rinpoche and request him to turn the wheel of Dharma. I think his opening speech was quite good. Some opening speeches aren't particularly well done, so they weren't included later. Next, His Holiness spoke as follows. Today we joyfully gather together. I want to start with the origin of Buddhism and talk about the instructions on the nature of mind in a brief way. Sometimes His Holiness, to accommodate them, would say something about the virtues of their center, but sometimes he wouldn't bother and would just teach directly and then say a few words when leaving. So His Holiness was quite cool in his teaching style at that time. Next, His Holiness gave the direct pointing out on the nature of mind. I see that in each of our sections there's a main title at the beginning. Everyone should know that this is the title of the entire lecture. The secret Mantrayana method of recognizing the nature of mind is the main heading. This is the title of the main article, and below are subsections. This is a subtitle. Buddhadharma from India to Tibet. This is what His Holiness introduced at the beginning. We might only cover this section today. So how is this presented? Our Guru taught as follows. From the perspective of ultimate truth, our root teacher, Buddha Shakyamuni, who possessed all aspects of skillful means and cared for us with great compassion and loving kindness, had already achieved the fruition of the primordial protector, Buddha Samantabhadra. This is the Vajrayana teaching, as everyone knows. From the perspective of his manifestation, 3 countless eons ago, he aroused the supreme bodhicitta, purified all defilements, and accumulated merit. Eventually, in Bodh Gaya, India, he achieved Buddhahood through the 12 enlightened deeds. Of course, the 12 deeds include descending from Tushita heaven to the human realm, all counted together. Finally, through the complete manifestation of the 12 deeds, he achieved Buddhahood in Bodh Gaya, India. Among these 12 deeds, the most essential one is the 3 turnings of the wheel of Dharma for the sake of inspiring and guiding fortunate sentient beings. Actually, the most important activity of the Buddha was turning the wheel of Dharma. For us as individuals, the most important thing in our lives, whether it's studying or teaching the Dharma, we should also think this way. For example, in your lifetime, if you've lived in confusion before and after, but in the middle you had a 5-year study plan or a 3-year study plan, I think this is what matters in your life. Your mark, your milestone. This is very important. If a Dharma teacher has taught for 3 years, this should be considered a milestone in your life. The first turning of the wheel of Dharma, the elderly monk beside me sometimes deliberately appeases me by just nodding like this. Just kidding, I won't say more. Otherwise he might leave and then I'd be in trouble. The first turning on the Four Noble Truths taught the common vehicles. After that, the uncommon Mahayana teachings were the second turning on the absence of characteristics and the third turning on fully distinguishing the reality. These terms for the turnings of the wheel should certainly be understood by Buddhists. If you don't even understand this, that would be quite ridiculous. These were the wheels of Dharma turned for ordinary sentient beings. Aside from that, in the God realm, Naga realm, Yaksha realm, human realm, and many other places for all supreme sentient beings, he turned different wheels of Dharma on the teaching of secret mantra that belongs to the Vajrayana path. Some of the secret mantra Vajrayana teachings were given in the human realm, and some were given in the places just mentioned, the God realm, Naga realm, and other places. So this is how the Buddha turned the wheel of Dharma. All teachings on the common vehicles were passed on to the 7 patriarchs, including Mahakashyapa and Ananda, and they gradually spread and thrived in the world. Previously, we should mention Venerable Pamsakulika, Venerable Kulapanthaka, Venerable Kalika, as well as Hiri and Mahasudasana. These are recorded in Buddhist history. When the Buddha finally departed, according to the Hinayana tradition, there were 7 generations of patriarchs who passed down the teachings. For the common Mahayana doctrines, all the profound teachings were compiled by Manjushri, all the extensive teachings were compiled by Maitreya and have flourished throughout the world. The uncommon Vajrayana teaching of secret mantra was compiled and carried forward generally by the lords of the 3 families, Avalokiteshvara, Manjushri, and Vajrapani. Specifically, it was the glorious Lord of Secrets, Vajrapani, who propagated it. Many later compilers were him. There were also the 2 supreme ones and 6 ornaments and other great masters, who ensured that the Buddhadharma would thrive in the holy land of India, like the sun shining on the earth forever. Including Nagarjuna and others, they were actually ornaments of both Sutrayana and Vajrayana. Most were ornaments in the 5 major treatises, but masters like Nagarjuna and Chandrakirti also wrote many tantric treatises. The Buddha himself had prophesied that the Buddhadharma would spread and increase from north to north. He had also foretold that 8 years after his parinirvana, one who would surpass him, Padmasambhava, would appear in this world and would travel north to the land of snows to propagate his teachings. Later, exactly as the Buddha's own prophecy declared, Guru Rinpoche went to Tibet and tamed sentient beings in various ways. This mantra adept, Ogyen Tsokye Dorje, or Padmasambhava, is actually Buddha Amitabha of Sukhavati, Lord Avalokiteshvara in Mount Potala, and the unsurpassable Buddha Shakyamuni in Bodh Gaya, the single primary emanation of all 3 figures. We'll look at this later on page 455. His Holiness specifically recited some scriptural citations at that time. In those citations there are slight differences, but this also shows that Buddha Amitabha, Avalokiteshvara, and Guru Padmasambhava are inseparable, and the Dharmakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Nirmanakaya are also inseparable. This is mentioned there. He didn't cite scriptural sources here, but he cited them in that other section. You can look at it later. What he mentioned there, if I remember correctly, yes, it was about Guru Padmasambhava. When I was His Holiness's driver, you should read this ahead of time. It's very interesting. I mentioned this driver before. At that time, the person who just drove for His Holiness collected these materials, and when he provided them to us, some were usable, including the article Let's Talk About Guru Padmasambhava. All of this was provided by that old driver. I really want to express my gratitude. The teaching Let's Talk About Guru Padmasambhava is an exceptionally wonderful speech, but later couldn't be found at this center, and on my end as well, among all my materials after a long time, it was lost. Actually, this A Journey to the West, if I had written it 20 years ago, it might have been better, or even 10 years ago would have been better. But there's no way around it, because writing it 30 years later, many things have already been lost. So you can also take a look at this. When I was His Holiness's driver, I think I just said it was on page 442. when I was His Holiness's driver. I believe it should be page 442. If you read this together with the article, Let's Talk About Guru Padmasambhava, if you read them together, you'll truly feel something. Why is it that 30 years later, a driver still has such materials? I think this must be the blessing of Guru Padmasambhava. This is a terma, I personally think so. And the content is especially wonderful. His Holiness taught it exceptionally well at that time. He was an unsurpassable great being who carried out extensive Dharma activities within the three spheres, subjugating all evil demonic forces and those disembodied entities who had broken their vows. He was an unparalleled great master. It was Padmasambhava who first dispelled all vicious spirits, demonic forces and vow-breaking spirits in Tibet. He mentioned vow-breaking spirits twice. Generally, among demons and spirits there are various kinds, but vow-breaking spirits are frequently mentioned in Vajrayana. So-called vow-breaking spirits are some spirits that enter the mind streams of relatively sensitive people and frequently cause themselves or others to break vows. So by praying to Guru Padmasambhava, these vow-breaking spirits can be easily subdued. He cleared away all obstacles and negative conditions to the spreading and thriving of the Dharma. During the same period, the great Khenpo Bodhisattva came to Tibet, and the Sutrayana teachings began to flourish. Later, Vimalamitra of India, originally written as Buddha Guhya, but later, according to history, is Shantigarbha. Shantigarbha and 108 Panditas were invited to Tibet. Then Vairotsana, Kawa Peltsek, Chogro Louis Gyaltsen, etc. 108 Tibetan translators were sent to India. Therefore, the corpus of the Buddhadharma that had remained in India was brought to Tibet and translated into Tibetan without omission. Without omission may be the case, because at that time, during King Trisong Detsen's reign, he cultivated many translators and invited many Panditas at that time. That was when the Buddhadharma was extremely flourishing in India. When the three great translators, Ka, Chok, and Zhang appeared during King Trisong Detsen's time, the earlier translation period, approximately in the 8th or 9th century. I haven't checked, but it should be around that time. Actually, at that time in India, including Nalanda Monastery, Vikramashila, and Odantapuri, the Buddhadharma was extremely flourishing. I mentioned this before. Nalanda Monastery seems to have been destroyed in the 12th century. Odantapuri was in the 13th century, and Vikramashila was a bit farther away and was burned last. So in India, starting from the 12th century, these monasteries were continuously destroyed. By the end of the 13th century, basically all the monasteries and Buddhist sacred sites were completely gone. It wasn't until 500 or 600 years later, in modern times, that monks from Sri Lanka, or as we mentioned in our India travelogue before, were able to restore it. So for 500 or 600 years, India had no Buddhadharma and had become a borderland. But before this, Tibetan Buddhism from these Indian monasteries translated much from Sanskrit into Tibetan. Chinese Buddhism also before this, including during the Spring and Autumn and Warring States periods and the Tang Dynasty, much was also translated. So nowadays in India, very few ancient Buddhist texts have been preserved, except for a very few in Pali in these areas. So history is sometimes very cruel. So His Holiness said at that time that it was translated before this. At that time, the flourishing of Buddhism in Tibet, even in India, this sacred land, was unprecedented. Later, one who was the intentional manifestation of Buddha Amitabha, whom we often call the glorious Dipamkara Srijnana or Venerable Atisha, came to Tibet. He spoke with deep feeling at that time, and what Venerable Atisha said was exactly as His Holiness taught it. Later, I also checked some historical records, and in the historical records, Venerable Atisha did indeed say this. It's not just a legend passed down by later generations. In many history books, at that time, Venerable Atisha indeed spoke with deep feeling. What did he say? He said, "Previously I thought that I had mastered all the vast and profound Dharma flourishing in India, as well as in Odhyana, Yakshas and Gandharva's realms, where Dakinis showed me many scriptures from the sky. These vast, ocean-like Buddhist scriptures, tantric texts, I knew them all." He thought his vast learning and erudition covered not only India, but also many places like Odhyana, where Dakinis and Vidyadharas displayed ocean-like tantras, and he knew them all. I have heard so many such teachings, but when I came to Sami Monastery and saw the Sanskrit manuscripts preserved there, I realized that I didn't even know 1% of all the tantric texts. He was deeply moved at that time, feeling this way about himself. So the tantras of the secret mantra tradition are truly endless, and the state of Buddhism flourishing in Tibet in the past probably never occurred even in India. He said this with great astonishment. This is recorded in many historical texts. Indeed, even now, whether in Dunhuang or in various monasteries, a few years ago we tried to find some ancient Tibetan texts, and now we've scanned them all, about 60-some volumes, many whose names I'd never even heard before. So whether among the Tibetan people or in monasteries, in some old houses, there are so many volumes of scriptures. Venerable Atisha also said this. His Holiness talked about this history, right? Before pointing out the nature of mind directly, he told them how excellent our Tibetan tradition is. The great accomplished master Orgyempa, he was actually the founder of one branch of the 8 lineages of attainment. Orgyempa, he'll be mentioned later too. This great accomplished master, Orgyempa, was a very formidable Vajrayana master and also a great Kagyu master. He also once spoke with deep feeling. Now in Tibet, the Nyingma school, just the titles of all the tantric texts, just the titles, are more numerous than the complete Kangyur and Tengyur. The Kangyur and Tengyur are over 300 volumes. Just the titles of all the Nyingma tantric treasury texts exceed 300 volumes. Just the catalogue is over 300 volumes. So how many actual texts are there? Therefore, it may well be so. For Dzogchen alone, there are 64 million tantras. Just Dzogchen alone has so many. If that's the case, then there are truly many. He said, the Nyingma Tantras are truly all-encompassing and inconceivable. He also said this at that time. This is indeed what he said in history. The Buddhism that flourished at that time was the earlier translation school of Kagyu and Nyingma. When those great masters evaluated it, it was all about the Nyingma teachings. After that, the Sakya, Kagyu and Kadam schools arose one after another. Especially the Kadam school was divided into old and new. The old school refers to the school founded by Venerable Atisha. The new school, the new Kadam, is the school founded by the great Tsongkhapa. Okay, let's stop here for today.
Sonamdei tamse vogaya tonne vedana pase Dzirgana jirano chupai Chupun zonen droja Bandangara badna Sodargye Bandangara badna Sodargye Bandangara badma Sodargye